Welcome back to Inside the Kentucky Derby, as we are at this recording 100 days away until the first Saturday in May. As we alluded to in the last episode, always the last Thursday in January. Kevin Kirstein, Darren Rogers here with you once again. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our friends over at Woodford Reserve. With over 200 flavor notes in every sip, Woodford Reserve is a spectacle for the senses. Please enjoy responsibly. Darren, this is an intriguing race on Saturday. And usually, I think year over year, in at least the last probably 5 or so years on the road to the Kentucky Derby, things have heated up at the start of the Risen Star, which is in mid-February. And I think we're starting to see with Oaklawn's program for 3-year-olds, their purse structure down there, that things are sort of backing up a little bit. And even with the comp last weekend, I think we're starting to get some more serious contenders on the road to the Kentucky Derby a little bit earlier in the year. This Southwest is going to answer a lot of questions, at least for me, on who some of the contenders versus pretenders are at this stage, with a horse like Arabian Night being the even money favorite.
Yeah, this is an exciting race. Looking forward to seeing Arabian Night run. His debut on the Breeders' Cup undercard in the first race of the day was breathtaking. I mean, he broke like a shot and kept going. And he is obviously a major prospect among this year's crop of 3-year-olds. The points are on the line, 28,642, although Arabian Night is not eligible to accrue points because trainer Bob Baffert is currently serving the second year of a 2-year suspension from competing in the Kentucky Derby or any races at a Churchill Downs racetrack because of the medication violation stemming from Medina Spirit back in 2021. The Southwest, I'm very, very excited to see the race because it's a good field. It has a very intriguing prospect. Can you name the starter that emerged from last year's Southwest in the Kentucky Derby?
Gosh.
It produced one starter.
Racking my brain now. The Southwest last year. Give it to me.
Barber Road.
Oh, there it is.
who finished 6th in the Derby.
And he's running on this year's Southwest card too in an allowance event. I knew it was going to be someone like that name, an obscure name, and I forgot about Barber Road.
It is, and that's kind of typically what these early January races do. The big contenders that were big 2-year-old prospects and had those heavy campaigns, they're being rested. They'll come back mid-March, have the 2-race run up to the Derby. But, the Southwest since 1980 has produced 38 Derby starters, 2 winners, 2 runner-ups, and 3 thirds. Do you know the 2 winners?
Okay. So the 2 winners, a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
A few years ago. This is going to be...
What's your definition? See, look, I'm 51. Yeah. You're younger. My definition of a few years ago varies. One, I don't know if you're going to be able to get. I think you can get 1.
Okay. A few years ago, definition for me is like before 2000.
Okay. Yeah, we've got 1 post 2000 and 1 in the 90s.
So Smarty Jones?
Ding, ding, ding. There's
and
1.
And then the 90s. You're going to have to give me the 90s.
I'm going to give you the hint. The trainer is famous for saying, once you win the Derby, it never washes off you.
Oh, gosh.
Lynn Whiting.
Yes.
Lynn Whiting with Little E.T. in 1992. Yeah. He ran 3rd in the Southwest and then came back and won the Derby. And then, of course, Smarty Jones, he swept through that series down in Hot Springs. And you're right. They've put together a heck of a purse structure. It makes it, along with the points now growing, to 20 to the winner and then having a $750,000 purse going a mile and a 16th. Those are some good incentives to run earlier.
And it really is. And that's, we've sort of seen typically Bob Baffert sends his top or some of his top runners into the South, into Oaklawn for the Rebel, the Arkansas Derby.
He is in their series of qualifying Kentucky Derby point races. He is 18 for 40.
Yeah.
18 for 40. So you're right.
And it's usually in the later series is when, the serious contenders have really arrived. But in this case with Arabian Night, it could be a right place at the right time as they're thinking for him to show up. And of course, $750,000 in reasons why. I don't particularly think Arabian Night has to win this race. And I think the field is deeper than Arabian Night. His debut at Keeneland was dazzling, like you said. And, that race came back to produce Determinately, who won an allowance race down at Fairgrounds, likely on the path to the Risen Star down there. I thought it was a decent race overall. He, to me, is just an intriguing horse, that the way that he has moved in that race, just physically, and the way that I've seen a couple of his works, I still think that he's not quite mentally there. And that's maybe one of the reasons why that they're trying to get, some more starts into him rather than waiting for, a race like the Rebel and then going on to the Arkansas Derby. He worked with Faustin in his last work at Santa Anita, and he was just toying with them that day. But it still seems to me like the way he's mentally trying to switch leads and, do different things, I still don't think he's quite mentally there as some of the more precocious Bob Baffert runners that we've seen in years past do well down at Oaklawn. So he can win this race on raw talent.
I might have to. I'm going to give you the counter to that. If this horse was, let's say, mentally challenged, I don't believe Bob Baffert would have put him on a plane to go to Keeneland and ship all the way to run a maiden race on the Breeders' Cup undercard. And the same thing for here, putting him on the plane. I mean, he arrived on Tuesday. They fly into Memphis, Tennessee, and then you van him 200 miles to Hot Springs from there. I don't think Bob would do that with a young horse that wasn't up.
Maybe not mentally, maybe it's just physicality trying to figure things out of how to run in a race, because I still think
look,
yeah.
Here's Exhibit A. He goes in 9-4 at the OBS sale over the synthetic.
Yeah.
He looks the part. They pay $2.3 million for him. You put him on a plane, dazzling winner. Now I'm all for trying to beat a short price favorite. I respect that, but I think this horse, I mean, he looks the part. He's got, by Uncle Mo, he's got that Indian Charlie in his blood. He's dazzling. I don't know. I think he, he went right to the front. Like most of those Baffert horses do. And then it's almost like a throttle down where they get into this high cruising speed. And he was just cruising down the backstretch. Had about a length advantage throughout. Leaving the turn, he spurted about 2 to 3 lengths clear, and then he just kicks clear and absolutely dominated that field. And his ears were pricked down the stretch, just waiting for Johnny V to ask him what to do next. He's had 8 workouts since. He's ready for this. He put him on a plane. I fully expect Bob to increase his record at Oaklawn to 19 for 41.
He can win this race on raw talent, in my ability. Again, he does have raw talent. I'm not knocking the horse. He has a lot of raw talent. I just don't think he's maybe as there yet as some of the other runners. And of course, we can agree to disagree.
That's right. That's why we do these.
Yeah, that's why we have a podcast. Bob Baffert is not afraid of Brad Cox. Clearly, and Brad Cox is a trio of contenders in this race in Corona Bolt, Jace's Road, and Hit Show. And let's talk about Corona Bolt and Jace's Road first, and then we can move on to Hit Show. Corona Bolt and Jace's Road were both ridden by Florent Geroux last starts, and I talked to Flo last night on the phone, and I said, just flat out, who is Brad Cox's best 3-year-old Derby prospect right now? And he said, I can't answer that question. Brad can't answer that question. Ricky, his assistant, can't answer. No one can answer that question. And he says, because they're not quite sure what they're beating at this stage. They're judging on sort of ability in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
These two horses both work with one another in the mornings. And he said they both have been working the best so far that he's seen and that he's been aboard out of some of the other of Brad's top Derby contenders. And Corona Bolt, the big question mark, I think a lot of people are going to be with him, is if he can stretch that speed around 2 turns, just running 2 starts, going 6 furlongs. I personally am a little bit hesitant, but I think that he, again, has shown raw ability and shown Brad, willing to test him going a mile and a 16th. What say you? Do you think he can get that distance?
Well, we've talked about it on the podcast, looking at his breeding alone. He's Bolt d'Oro on top, which is Medaglia d'Oro, as well. Then you have on the bottom a Quiet American mare. That suggests, a routed ground to me. Now, and I love horses that get 2 sprints and then the route.
Mm-hmm.
2 sprints and route. I love it. Rewatching his victory in the Sugar Bowl, he is so quick. He's very quick out of the gate. I don't think he's as quick as Arabian Night. Maybe Arabian Night lets him go. I mean, that might be also part of this. He may just sit off him, but this horse is very quick. He kind of runs a little high-headed a little bit. His ears were pinned back, going down the backstretch at Fairgrounds. And then if you watch his stride down the lane, it looks like a sprinter stride. Short, choppy, efficient.
Yeah.
But I'm after rewatching the video of the Sugar Bowl, I am suspicious as to whether or not this horse is going to be able to go 2 turns.
The one thing for me looking at this race as a whole that's intriguing with him is, so say if Arabian Night goes to the front and he is, the pace setter up the backside. Corona Bolt has shown in his debut where he's had some ability to, lay off horses and pass horses.
Mm-hmm.
And, if he's able to maybe relax just a little bit, maybe he sits off of Arabian Night's hip and he has proven that he's been able to pass horses in his debut. But again, he is very quick from the gate. Maybe that debut, the quickness hasn't quite, been there from the gate, but he showed that in the Sugar Bowl of how quick he is away from the gate. So, maybe it's, play things from the break, as you were saying, but if he can relax a little bit, maybe we'll see that, he can save some of that quickness that he showed in the Sugar Bowl early and transform that later into the race.
Well, and Jace's Road has also shown the ability to be very sharp from the break. So it'll be interesting. Corona Bolt's on the 2-hole. Jace's Road's just to his outside in the 3. And then you have, in the 6th path, you've got Arabian Night. So I can envision Arabian Night going right to the front. The race goes through me. You all come and get me.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him sitting and sitting a head back of letting either Corona Bolt or Jace's Road go. In that pouncing type position. But Jace's Road going to him now, I mean, he was sharp right to the front. He widened his lead down the stretch, and he determinedly ran third, determinedly tried to press him. He kind of broke bad that day, but he was basically pressing Jace's Road throughout, and he got passed late, but he won last week. So it's a good race. Good time, good speed figure. He could be he has every right to logically be in the mix.
And here's what's tough for me trying to decipher Jace's Road. So you go 2 starts back when he ran his horrible effort in the Street Sense against 2 fills. That's just a line through. So you look at then the Iroquois where Curly Jack won and honed, and Curly Jack came back and he ran in the Kentucky Jockey Club. And to me, as we saw with Instant Coffee coming back and winning the Lecomte, I think Instant Coffee is the only horse maybe that I want out of that Kentucky Jockey Club moving forward. And it's not to say that, maybe some of the other horses are okay. I just, we talked about, the finish at the end as just sort of that blanket effort and, for the runner ups and the minor efforts.
We joke around here in the communications office at Churchill Downs. We're always looking at the Derby. Is this a Derby horse or is this a Matt Winn horse?
Right.
So if I'm hearing you, you're thinking this horse might be more of the Matt Winn type material.
I think he is more of a Matt Winn type of material. And it's just because I just don't think he's, he's getting while the getting's good, maybe, for Brad Cox, because he ran him in that gun runner and he ran him ahead of schedule. They thought about, running him in the LeCompte. He ran in the gun runner and he's $750,000 in reasons why maybe he's okay.
Well, you got to keep trying,
and you got to keep trying. You're on the road to the Kentucky Derby.
He won the gun runner. There's no slouch. You obviously go on. You keep testing,
and determinately,
but the water gets deeper down the road.
The water gets deeper, and speaking of determinately, who we saw in Arabian Nights form, and we seen in Jesus Road's form. That allowance race was just okay to me. He came back at 1, but it was just okay.
Matt Winn horses.
And so is there Matt Winn horses. So
Corona Bolt, by the way, might be a Pat Day Mile.
He could be a Pat Day Mile horse. Brad Cox's third entrant is Gary Mary West's Hit Show, who won last time out in an allowance event with Joe Talamo in the saddle, going that 1 mile at Oaklawn. He's going to have to prove to me that he can run a little bit faster. Speed figures, I think, are just a little bit too low in the totem pole right now to compete with some of these. Do you think he has a shot?
I prefer others.
That's a very PC way of saying
it is. I actually like some long shots in here underneath that I'm intrigued by. Not necessarily from a speed figure standpoint, but from tape watching, it's intriguing. But Hit Show, that was a nice look. He hesitated at the start, so he's not going to be, in that forwardly position. He'll be near the back of the pack in this field of 9, and he tracked and cleared, from 5th last time out. Went 4 wide on the turn, and then he drew clear. I will say the last 16th of a mile, he drew clear very impressively. I mean, it was a good spurt late. So distance is not going to be an issue. Candy Ride out of the Tappet mare Actress. Manny Franco's into ride because, as you mentioned earlier, Florent Giroux will be riding Cyberknife in the Pegasus World Cup in his career finale. So you have a bunch of jockeys coming in, flipping around into Oaklawn for this race. Flavian Prat rides Corona Bolt. Joe Talamo gets on Jesus Road, and then Manny Franco on Hit Show.
And that's a little telling to me that Joe Talamo either was told by Brad or his agent Jake Romans chose Jace's Road, or maybe Joe even chose Jace's Road over Hit Show, who he rode last time.
I think I would choose Jace's Road myself.
I would too. So we have 3 from Brad Cox. You have the Bob Baffert Arabian Night. You have 2 from Kenny McPeek in this race, in Sun Thunder and Frosted Departure. Usually we see a lot of the Kenny McPeek precocious 2-year-olds performing well in September and the fall at Churchill. I feel like overall his stock of 2-year-olds and Derby contenders this year is maybe a little bit less than we saw at this point last year. Sun Thunder broke his maiden last time out down at Oaklawn going a mile, and then Frosted Departure, who we've seen run 9 times so far.
A lot of dances for the Frosted one.
A lot of dances. And he's, has tried stretching out before in both the Breeders' Futurity and the Street Sense. Kenny McPeek has shortened him up. He tries stretching out again. These two a little bit of a stretch for me. I prefer Sun Thunder, I think, over Frosted Departure.
I do as well. Let's just start with Frosted Departure. As you said, he's tried stretching out twice to no avail. It's funny, when I watched his victory in the Renaissance at Oaklawn last time out, he doesn't run he went right to the front, and he let Count de Monet go. And Count de Monet, kind of spurted clear, and Frosted Departure was on the inside, was able to track then on the out, get to his outside, and and it took over at the top and was in a fierce and determined stretch run with Two Eagles River. It was a nice race, and watching the race, he doesn't look like a sprinter down the lane. Like he looks well built. He looks like he has a decent stride. Didn't look like a shortening, sprinty type of stride. I think he's overmatched. So, Kenny loves to take the shots. You don't know it until you try, and clearly he wants to give this horse another try around 2 turns. But then again, that's why a lot of owners are in business. They're Derby dreaming.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
So you might as well give it a go. He comes back 4 weeks after winning a 6 furlong sprint. He's now going to try and win over 8.5 furlongs.
Now let's talk about Sun Thunder, who debuted going 7/8 at Churchill. Determinately again that was the day that he broke his maiden beneath the Twin Spires, and then you go back and he won at Oaklawn going a mile. David Cabrera was in the saddle, and I thought that race was visually impressive.
Yeah.
And I think he has some, backing to move forward out of that race. He's just going to have to move a lot forward, I think, to maybe try and beat Arabian Night or Corona Bolt.
Yeah, he's 10-1 on the morning line, and this is one of the outsiders that I kind of like. The speed figure isn't the strongest, coming back. But that last race was, as you said, very visually impressive. He was outfooted at the start, raced in mid-pack. He was in the clear, and then made this very, very nice move on the turn to grab the lead and just dominated that field. I expect him to be towards the back of the pack. And so if I'm thinking that Arabian Night is my horse to beat in this race, and I'm trying to visualize the race, I'm seeing Corona Bolt, chasing Jace's run at some point is going to have to make a move. And if they move, they might move a little too soon. And some of these horses near the back of the pack are going to make a run. And so I'm looking for a little value, and Sun Thunder might be that type of value to cash underneath.
The interesting thing about early moves that I think a lot of people will have to watch in this race is it's the short stretch at Oaklawn. And so it's a mile and a 16th. And so the way that they finish at this race is
do you get the short stretch in the mile and 16th races?
I think
I thought it was the mile races.
Oh, it is the mile races. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll get the
full, stretch. Okay. Forget everything I just said there.
But remember it down the road with
the
mile
races. Red Route 1. Gosh, this horse has made me scratch my head so many times. And, you can't put yourself in the mentality of Hall of Famer Steve Asmussen, because the guy is the greatest. Mm-hmm. And you see a horse who's owned by Ron Winchell, who, by the way, owns Kentucky Downs. You see him buy Gunrunner out of a Tappet mare, regally bred for, you would think, dirt. This horse debuted on the turf at Saratoga and then goes and breaks his maiden impressively at Kentucky Downs for his owner of both the track and the horse. And now you see him try the dirt after that. And he ran in the Breeders' Futurity, was well back early and finished third that day, was beaten 7 lengths. So, of course, you're going to, try it again, running that way sloppy track in the street sense. That's a forgivable effort. And I thought ran okay in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Yeah. However, he's, part of that blanket finish that we saw, and, maybe a Matt Winn horse.
Yeah, he might be. Yeah, I mean, look, he's, as you said, he's regally bred. The Gunrunner out of the Tappet mare Red House. I mean, that's excellent breeding. And, as we've said before, the Kentucky Jockey Club, the pace was slow. He kind of tracked from 5th, and he was in between horses throughout while being tracked in 5th. So he's experienced. He comes across as a one pace kind of horse to me.
Just a grinder.
He was just grinding and went all the way around there. It appeared when you rewatch the Kentucky Jockey Club, you'll even hear track announcer Travis Stone, suggesting that Red Route 1 is screaming out for room. I don't know if he had the speed to get through any of those holes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was really waiting. I think it was more of a one-pace grind throughout. Briefly appeared to, look like he was going to finish third, and, he ended up fourth as part of that blanket finish in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Instant Coffee did come back and win.
Yeah.
So maybe we're the ones that are wrong on poo-pooing the strength of this year's Jockey Club. But this horse is not going to be for me.
Yeah, he's a passola for me, but then again, we'll see what happens and see if we're poo-pooing the Jockey Club for no reason. I'm, of course, rooting for the Jockey Club to come back productive, as always.
We always do, yep.
Western Ghent and El Tomate are the two longest prices in the field. Western Ghent, Hall of Famer D. Wayne Lucas, co-owns and trains this horse. El Tomate, Miguel Silva, broke his maiden at Remington. Are these horses overmatched, do you think, or is there any chance that these horses could step up and run okay in this race?
I'd love to see Western Ghent step up just because of the coach. Wayne Lucas would love the Derby Trail is so much more fun when Wayne has a horse on it, and I'd love to see him get an opportunity to collect his 5th Kentucky Derby trophy, but I don't think Western Ghent is necessarily the horse. He hustled with Victory Formation last time out in the Smarty Jones. Victory Formation, to no surprise, was faster than him. Kind of got the jump on him, leaving that first turn, and he just tracked on the outside of him. Had every right. He was pushed to, stay with Victory Formation on the turn. You could see the jockey pumping his arms. And he just really didn't have a kick. So the PP line looks like it was. I mean, he finished 4th, ended up beating 9.5 lengths. He's a Matt Winn out long shot.
He recorded his best career Brisnet speed figure of 81 in that Smarty Jones, and I will have to get about 20 points faster, I believe, to win this race. Rooting for Christian Torres, who is the top jock down at Oaklawn, does get back aboard Western Ghent, and Christian used to gallop for the Mark Casse team, and now he's leading rider down at Oaklawn. So he's certainly riding well down there, but I think he's got his hands full with that one. El Tomate,
the tomato
coming in from Remington.
The tomato is very intriguing.
Oh,
to me.
I like this. Here we go.
Do yourself a favor. You have to rewatch the videotape of his debut on December the 14th at Remington Park in the second race. This is the first, and by the way, watched the race, did not know his breeding. Okay. And I said, man, this horse's debut kind of reminds me a little bit of Run Happy.
Okay.
This horse, look, he's outfooted at the start. Doesn't look like he broke slow. Doesn't look like he hesitated, but he was outfooted out of the gate. And about a furlong in, all of a sudden, he makes this wild move to go from 7th to all the way up to 3rd before they hit the turn. And you can see, I mean, it's a beautiful run. It's a hell of a run. Then he's stuck down on the inside, and now he's kind of checking a little bit. Whoa, I got to slow him. Now he gears him back down. He slips through an opening on from 2nd. And anyway, he's asked to go again, and he rolled again, leaving the turn, floated out a little bit. And then anyway, it was the most reminiscent run in a debut that was similar to the goofiness of Run Happy's career victory. Now, his was much more wild.
Was Dale Day's call similar to Battaglia? Was it El Tomate? Look at him.
I didn't pay that much attention to it, but it was the tomato. The tomato grabbed this horse has run, and now you got to ask yourself, what's he running against up at Remington? Okay, but he won by 5 1/4 lengths. I don't think he's bred to go long. Out of he's run happy, number one, but there's Mr. Greeley on the bottom. That suggests sprint to me, but I don't blame them for taking a chance here. And I love the fact that this horse, as a young horse in his career debut, showed the ability to stop and start.
Yeah. You don't see that in horses.
You want to see a stop and start. And if you have the ability to do that, especially in the Derby, you're going to encounter traffic trouble at some point, but the ability to, push button and follow the cues of your jockey, is an important trait. He's going to be a monster price in here. I think I'm going to use him underneath and give him a shot.
I love it. The tomato.
Watch that replay. Do yourself a favor. It was fun to watch. It was a nice debut.
You can watch that replay on twinspires.com, and you can also wager on the Southwest and watch it on twinspires.com. They've got lots of good promotions over there on the road to the Kentucky Derby. Be sure to check them out for all your wagering needs. There's quite a few 3-year-old races from around the country this weekend. It's Pegasus weekend, so I think a lot of eyes are going to be focused down in South Florida for the card down there. There's also some action on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. Earlier in the Oaklawn program, there's some action in the West Coast for the Las Virgenes.
Fiza is going to be, she looks like she's going to be one of the top contenders for the Oaks.
Yeah, I can't see any other ones in there. At this time, she's ineligible to garner points because she's trained by Bob Baffert. Aqueduct has an okay maiden race on Saturday. Oaklawn's card, which features the Martha Washington. We can get to that one.
Excuse me for coughing.
We're still...
if you've been listening, we've had the winter crud. I was so proud of both of us for not coughing in our previous 2 podcasts. I couldn't control it today.
Yes, I hear you on that one. Defining Purpose in the Martha Washington is 6-5 for Kenny McPeak. And I think deservedly 6-5. She'll face Olivia Twist, who's trained by Todd Fincher, who's very intriguing, undefeated coming out of Remington Park. We saw, of course, Todd Fincher with Senor Buscador, and what was the filly's name?
Oh, the sprinter.
Yes.
It's not fainted.
No,
it's
famed. Yeah.
Wait.
No.
Oh, this is going to kill us.
This is here we go. So they're the top 2 in the Martha Washington as Darren pulls up his iPad right now to help us out because it's going to drive us nuts. The rest slammed. There it is. It was a one-word, famed, ED, slammed. Yeah, so slammed. So Olivia Twist is very intriguing.
Fainted.
Yeah, very close. Slammed.
Famed, slammed. We got there.
I think these 2 are intriguing. D. Wayne Lucas has Take Charge Brianna and looking for his Oaks repeat. That would be something for 87-year-old Wayne Lucas and Mikhail.
That was a fun. We were talking about that the other day. What a fun moment that was. Wayne Lucas winning that Oaks this year.
And the best part about that was the show that he put on in that post-race news conference.
He loved it.
It was great. And I didn't get a chance to, watch it live as it happening, but it made me smile going back and rewatching it because it was special and it put some pep in his step. And I think this filly can put some pep in his step. Brad Cox also has Wet Paint, who comes in off of a second place finish in Allowance Company at Turfway over the synthetic. She will have to improve, I think, to beat the top 2. Oaklawn's a couple other 3-year-olds. They got 2 maiden races, one going long, one going short on Saturday. The one going 3/4 is a intriguing race for me just because Simovic and Storm and Army were 2 horses that I lost a lot of money on, and then I'm going to try and gain back some money on, who were off for a while. Storm and Army hasn't been seen since August 13th. Simovic hasn't been seen since that same day in that same race where a horse named Confidence Game won the race.
Yeah.
That was, of course, on the Arlington Million card, and then Confidence Game has come back and run okay.
You might be all right. Look, you can get some of it back because if the prices hold, 12-1 on Storm and Army and 10-1 on Simovic.
Storm and Norman, though, with Norm Cassie's Easy Action and Alex and Joanne LeBlanc, who love to win races in bunches down at Oaklawn, is a 7-5 favorite.
Yep.
The 2-turn affair I think it's just as wide open as can be, and I think there's going to be some long shots in here to make on the road to the Kentucky Derby. Talladega, who is an $850,000 purchase for WinStar and Sienna Farm, is the 5-2 morning line favorite. We got any other action?
You got a Pegasus World Cup.
Cyberknife. I think he goes out a winner.
I've had many people come up to me around town here in Louisville asking about the Pegasus World Cup, and like, man, where are all the big horses? I'm like, who you missing? I mean, Taiba is going to run in the $20 million race over in Saudi Arabia. He's really the only older horse right now that looks like a true grade 1 horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
This year's race, let's face it, it's the best what we've got left in America right now. It looks like a Lucas Classic with a big purse, right?
It looks familiar of some of the Dons in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Don was a really good race.
And that was at the time that many of the older horses were staying in training after the Breeders' Cup.
Oh, the cigars, Skip Away. I mean,
but there were a couple of renditions in the last decade that, and that's why they've rebranded it into the Pegasus World Cup to try and keep some of those older horses in training. But yeah, again, all the older horses that need to be there, except for Taiba, are in this race. And I think Cyberknife will go out a winner. The only 3-year-old race that I think is worth mentioning, actually, I think the only one on the program is a 7/8 maiden special weight. Bourbon Resolve is an intriguing runner for Ian Wilkes, who's owned by the Bourbon Lane Stables and 6 Column Stables. He ran back at Gulfstream going 7/8 on New Year's Eve, and this horse shows every right, I think, to improve. Again, 7/8 will probably get Triple Crown nominated, a few of these horses in this race, and probably the maiden winner could come back and try, 2 turns in their series of the Fountain of Youth or the Florida Derby. So that's an intriguing event. I think Bourbon Resolve, for me, is the most intriguing runner out of there.
Looking ahead.
Yeah, let's look ahead.
Looking ahead to a couple of weeks from now, of course, following the Southwest. We'll have the Withers on February the 4th, Arctic Arrogance, probably the horse to beat up in the Northeast, unless somebody comes in there to challenge. A number of horses that are intriguing are under consideration for a couple of races. The Feb 4 Holy Bull, Cyclone Mischief, I would imagine, returns there for Dale Romans. Might be the horse to beat in there. You have, a couple of Pletcher trained horses, Tappet Trice, Litigate, probably choosing between the Holy Bull or maybe waiting a week later to run in the Sam F. Davis. I would imagine in the Robert B. Lewis, it's basically going to be a sham repeat of the, National Treasure, Reincarnate, and Newgate showing back up there. But those are the races on the horizon and what we have to look forward to in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, from now until April the 15th, there's only one Saturday that does not have a Derby prep race. So the action at the secondary headquarters for points will be hot and heavy.
Yes, it will.
So that's what we've got so far on the road to the Derby. Southwest this weekend. Watch and wager on twinspires.com. Be sure to check KentuckyDerby.com for all the latest stories and information about the Southwest. And we'll be back on Monday to play Monday morning quarterback and see what we saw out of the Southwest. If
who was right,
yeah,
and who was wrong.
Exactly. That's what's so great about this game.
No weather forecasts.
Let's look. Well, here, yeah. Apparently, we're not meteorologists.
Dry track.
And I pull up the first app that I go to when you say weather is still dark sky. And I click it, and I know it's not there, but I still click it. There's a chance for showers.
At Oakland?
But it's later in the day, so it's going to be a dry track. It's going to be cold down in Hot Springs, Arkansas. But it'll be, I think it'll be a dry track. We'll see. We've been wrong before. A week ago. That's it for us. We'll talk to you on Monday. Best of luck on all your gambling adventures this weekend. We're going to have a couple, and then we'll be back hopefully with our pockets full on Monday.